The MSM is counting on most Americans not paying attention. Now, I know that probably does not come as a huge shock to most of my audience, but there are some things happening, some very critical things happening in South America that are not being reported in our media. I know a lot of people are aware of the explosion in Mexico. That was a tragedy. But the real issue right now is in Colombia. They are starting to set it up. The reason they're going to invade Venezuela. They're going to make it seem as if the Venezuelans fired first. They're going to try this thing on the 23rd with the marches, and if it doesn't fly, they are going to make you believe that the Venezuelan government ordered this terrorist group called the ELN, Ejército Liberación Nacional, to attack stations, military posts, and pipelines inside Colombia, therefore giving the Colombians and the Brazilians the right to retaliate. This is what's happening. There has been a car bombing at police headquarters. This was, I believe, 2 days ago, January 18th. Killed 21, injured 68 cadet police officers. Today, there was an attack on an oil pipeline, all being blamed on one group, the ELN. The ELN doesn't operate this way. They have had some issues with the government for sure, but what this is doing is this is giving Duque the ability to call these people criminals, not even have to negotiate with them like he said he would. And oh, by the way, here are these horrible, terrible, evil socialist criminals right here that Ivan Duque once jailed. This is the ELN. These are their negotiators. This government of Colombia that has admitted to killing 348 social leaders between 1985 and 2016. That's just what they admit to. 31 years, 348, about 10 a year. What if the U.S. government came out and said, you know, once a month, we've been killing governors and mayors across this country that we didn't think were operating in a way that was good for the United States. Yeah, we just killed them. Yeah, we've done one a month, every month for the last 31 years. What do you think would happen in this country if the U.S. government came out and admitted that? And that's just what they're admitting. This is the argument that I have made for so long that I'm going to try to expand on today for my audience. Without $500 million a year from the United States and a complete pass on the drug trade, Colombia would have long ago collapsed. 6 million refugees from the Colombian Civil War were living in Venezuela in 2014 and 15 when the U.S. decided to take Venezuela out. 6 million. And what have the numbers been reported? 3 million people have left Venezuela. 3.5 million people have left Venezuela. Good. Half of the Colombians have left and gone back to Venezuela, or gone back to their country. See, it's ironic that Venezuela, for decades and decades and decades, was providing the enabling mechanism for Colombia to behave this way, because the people could just go across the border and be taken care of and get free food and get free health care and get all sorts of benefits while Colombia allowed this war to go on. See, they actually created the war. Let me get this stood up here. There are two paramilitaries in Colombia. When you hear about these bombings and shootings, all this kind of thing, it's not all one group of people. Now, the right-wing paramilitaries in South America aren't the type to get up in the morning and turn on Rush Limbaugh, like I've said before. If you're a right-wing American and you think you have a lot in common with the right wing in Colombia, let me maybe illuminate some of their beliefs for you. They don't believe in the personal right to bear arms. Bad idea for just normal people to have weapons. That's a right-wing belief in South America. Another right-wing belief in South America is that the Pope should be the ultimate authority in all things above governments. They are completely devoted to the supreme authority of the Catholic Church. They are very much against workers' rights. They are very pro-big business. They are very pro-Israel. This is the right wing in South America. The left wing in South America believes in your personal right to have a weapon. They believe that religion is personal to the man and should not enter into state affairs. They believe that while business is good, business should not be allowed to treat people like slaves, should have to pay a fair wage, and should be held accountable when they do damage. Those are left-wing beliefs in South America. Now, you can identify yourself however you want to, but at least you have the information. Now, in this map, I have identified the right-wing paramilitaries as black because they are so in bed with oil, and the left-wing paramilitaries as green. This is what was going on in the 60s and 70s. The right-wing paramilitaries were there defending Dole and Del Monte and Chiquita, and the left-wing paramilitaries were trying to save their land and their people from exploitation. But as time progressed, the governments realized that the left-wing paramilitaries had the upper hand because there were so many more of them. So they had to create this thing called a peace deal. And what this peace deal did was get rid of the left-wing paramilitaries, only the FARC and the ELN, F-A-R-C and E-L-N, giving the right-wing paramilitaries, the AGC, the AUC, free run of the country. And that's what's happened since 2014 and 15. This is how they were able to go into Venezuela and run up these fake numbers on inflation with these fake charts out of Miami, these exchange rates. And I covered this in yesterday's video about how they were able to completely, for lack of a better term, denude Venezuela of its currency, causing hyperinflation. It's what happened here in the Great Depression. There were not enough dollars, literal physical dollars out there for the people to earn, to exchange, to create an economy. It led to the printing of money, unfortunately. But it was just part of the story that people don't get. So when you hear about these evil, terrible, horrible leftist socialists in Venezuela, this is what gave rise to Chavez. Was big oil, big pharma, big U.S. corporations coming down here, and without the oversight of our North American socialism, they were able to do horrible, terrible things to the people down here and the environment. And these people just had enough of it. And Venezuela, as a government, had enough of it, as a people had enough of it. And this is what's being argued over now. This isn't about a dictator in Caracas that the people don't want there and, because he controls the military, it's crap. That's absolute bullshit. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to set this up so that you believe one side is evil and terrible and horrible, and they are duping Venezuelans into believing this as well. And that this other side, Colombia and Brazil, are just, good, honest, decent, Dudley Do-Right types. When nothing's further from the truth. This is about one of the last, most powerful sovereign nations on the earth losing its sovereignty. And that's why it's important. Because we're going to be the ones, unfortunately, that take it away from them. Never made the allegation that Venezuela could stand up against the United States one-on-one. They would have a hard enough time doing it against the Brazilians, even with the help of the Russians. And this is what they're very much afraid of, is Brazil just operating on its own. Because it's just the reality. That's how powerful the Brazilian military is. They wouldn't need the help of the Colombians. They wouldn't need our help. And This is going to create a sea change in this hemisphere. When we stop equating wealth with good, then we can start moving forward as a society and as a people. Because, of course, we see the empty shelves in Venezuela and we think bad. Would you rather be poor and free or wealthy and a slave? I'm sure a lot of people in theory would say, well, I would rather be poor and free. Really? For how long? A month? 6 months? A year? How long before Americans, most Americans, would start to say, it would be better had we stayed in Egypt, to quote the Bible? Because this is the story. This is the real case here. This is a choice between corrupt wealth and honest poverty. And I don't want to speak for you, but I know what side I'm coming down on. Like, share, subscribe.